Welcome into Win the Line, presented by the 33rd team. Tanner Kern joined alongside former CFL defensive lineman Maxx Forde. Max, week 8 already here. We are moving through the season, and we got some injuries to talk about as usual. Ed Oliver, defensive tackle for Buffalo. He is questionable with a toe injury for Thursday night. Another guy that's questionable for Thursday, Vita Vea of the Buccaneers with a groin injury. I want to focus on these two specifically, and more so on the Buccaneers side of things. Is there a way for Tampa Bay to shut down this Buffalo Bills offense, which has been struggling as of late?
Man, without Vita Vea, if he's out, I think that's going to be a huge hit for them. I think it makes it really tough for them to stop him because he's such a big thing, part of what they do on the inside there, stopping the run. He's just, you get him like once a generation, it feels like those big 350-pound guys that can move the way he moves. Like there's Haloti Ngata, you have Dontari Poe, you got Vita Vea. Like he's just he's a freak athlete at that size. Gets really good pass rush too. Normally you get those 250-pounders that are just in there for the run. He's a great pass rusher. He's a big piece of what they do defensively. Keeps those linebackers clean. I know they've got those two middle linebackers that they were a big part of that Super Bowl run they had. So he's a big part of their production as well. So it's just without him, this defense looks a lot different. And I know Buffalo has struggled on offense, but they still got elite quarterback, which in this league, it's hard to bet against those guys multiple weeks in a row. So I think it's going to be tough for them without him if he doesn't play.
Definitely. Vita Vea means a lot more to the Buccaneers than Ed Oliver does to Buffalo. I still love Oliver a lot, but when you look at this Tampa Bay offensive line, they have not found any sort of rhythm. I feel bad for Rachaad White weekly, just watching him get pounded. He is fighting to get 3 yards a carry right now with this Tampa Bay offensive line. So we'll see what happens on Thursday night. But moving into our mismatches, as we usually do, we have a lot of similar teams on here, but the bottom line is good teams tend to dominate week after week. Philadelphia Eagles defense is a mismatch this week against a struggling Washington Commanders offense. Max, first off, how do you see this matchup playing out?
Well, I think from the Las Vegas point of view, I'm jumping ahead to the next matchup. From the Washington point of view, they just are going to want to try to hit the edges. I think nobody can run on the inside against Philly. So I don't know that they're going to be able to hit the edges like we've talked about. Philadelphia is very good at the edge as well. Got good defenders out there. And I just think the interiors, nobody can run against them. You just saw in prime time against Miami, one of the better teams at running the ball this year. They shut down that running game pretty good. It's just if they want to have a chance, I think they got to try to hit the edges. I don't think they can. Obviously, Philly puts up points on their side, so they'll have to try to keep up. And when it gets to that, we are starting to see the Philadelphia edge defenders start to get that pass rush going. Saw a few of those Josh Sweat sacks on Sunday Night Football there. So this is a team that the way they shut down the run, I think they earn the right to pass rush. You talk about that a lot of times in the locker room, earning the right to pass rush by shutting down the run. And this is a team that can do it. Nobody can run on them. They get the right to pass rush, and then they go and get the quarterback, pin their ears back.
Definitely. And something I saw from the Philadelphia Eagles defense, at least against the Miami Dolphins, they were elite in the secondary. They were very good putting pressure on Tua Tagovailoa. He only threw for 220 yards in this football game. Like, that's remarkable to see them do that. So when they join the pass defense now with that strong run defense with guys like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, even a guy like Milton Williams in the interior, like, it's a nightmare for the opposition. Now, going back to your playing days when you were a defensive lineman, how valuable was it to be rotated in and out? Because something we've seen from the Eagles, they have a big rotation. They're able to get those reps and then get their breaks on the sideline and come in fresh. Was that a huge advantage over the offensive line?
Oh, absolutely. You don't see offensive linemen rotate a lot. So when you get those long drives, being able to rotate out, you can go 100%, and your 100% is your actual full 100% fresh instead of your 100% by the end of like a 10 or 12 play drive becomes maybe you're 80% when you're fresh, kind of a thing. So those long drives can wear on you. I'll ask you as an offensive lineman, you kind of like those long drives, I think, because of that.
You love them. You love looking across the line at like a defensive line being like, they don't want to play anymore, but you're also kind of jealous when you just see defensive linemen rotating in and out. A new group comes in on third down. If you're lucky enough to convert, then the big guys come in on first and second down. So it's totally different. But as an offensive lineman, I love seeing long drives. It is tough though, and defensive linemen do have that advantage because they are rotating in and out. If you're as stacked as the Eagles are. Eagles are 6th in NFL in least yards allowed per game. And the offense hasn't really put them in great situations a lot this year. Jalen Hurts has turned the ball over pretty consistently. So the fact that they are this good on defense is remarkable. We got a question here about some general fantasy stuff. Just traded Cole Kmet and Rashid Shaheed for George Kittle and Rondale Moore in a 20-man PPR. His roster has Russ, JT, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, Cole Kmet, now Kittle, and Jacoby Myers. Well, I'll tell you what, having Jonathan Taylor in there is very valuable, even with a struggling Colts offensive line at times. And then Aaron Jones. We're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers a little later, so stay tuned there. And make sure you head over to the 33rdteam.com for all the fantasy news that you want to know and all the insight as well about your specific teams. Also, join our Discord because people are answering these questions daily in there as well. So the Detroit defense versus the Las Vegas Raiders offense here. This is an interesting matchup. Detroit's coming off getting absolutely blasted last week by the Baltimore Ravens. I will say this, though. Lamar Jackson is totally different than Jimmy G, Brian Hoyer, and Aiden O'Connell, whoever they choose to start this week. So do you expect a different intensity out of the Lions, and how much is that intensity going to be ramped up this week against a bad Las Vegas Raiders offense?
Yeah, absolutely do. I think we both can agree Detroit's a good team this year, and I don't think you see good teams in the NFL have back-to-back bad weeks very often. It happens occasionally. I don't think that the good teams, when they get beat, especially the way they did, where they just got ran out of the building, they go back to the drawing board. It's probably a little bit of tension in that building this week, but they're going to come out focused, ready to go. And going against a team like you said, you're going from Lamar Jackson to now whoever the Raiders trot out there at quarterback this week, whether it's Hoyer, whether it's Garoppolo, whether it's O'Connell, it's just not the same dynamic. And so this is a defense that's been trending up until last week. I think they get it back together, and this is just a good get-right spot for them.
Oh, yeah. We talked about rush lane integrity last week, and it wasn't like the Detroit defensive line wasn't in Lamar Jackson's face throughout this game. He was just able to evade the pressure. I don't think we're going to see the same thing this week from whatever quarterbacks on the field for Las Vegas, but as a former defensive lineman, how much do you think rush lane integrity this week against a quarterback like Jimmy G or Hoyer or O'Connell?
It's always important, but it's not as much of a stress factor in the game plan when you're going against a guy like that, because you could take some risks against a guy that's a little bit more of a statue quarterback. And if he gets out of the pocket, he's not going to kill you with a big long run. Maybe he gets out and gets 5 yards or something like that, but he's not going to hurt you. And so you can take those calculated risks where maybe you take a move inside where you leave contain open. And if you get the sack, that's a huge impact play. And if you don't, it's not going to hurt you the way it will when you're playing a Lamar Jackson type quarterback. So it's always important, but it's kind of one of those things that goes in when you're taking those calculated risks there.
Yeah, definitely. One guy as an offensive lineman that I would be scared of this week, Aiden Hutchinson, 15 solo tackles, 4.5 sacks so far this season. Wasn't super effective last week. Nobody really was for Detroit, so I like him to have a big bounce back. Moving into some of our DFS budget plays. So again, we'll talk some JT and some Aaron Jones down here. We'll definitely Aaron Jones here in our final matchup. But looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers defense going against the Jacksonville Jaguars offense this week. Interesting spot for the Steelers. They force turnovers. They have defensive touchdowns, but when you look at them statistically, they haven't been great this season. So why are you leaning towards this potential matchup, Max, for your DFS plays?
Well, yeah, you just kind of said part of it there. Those turnovers and those defensive touchdowns count for a lot in those DFS plays. And I'm not saying you can count on a defensive touchdown every week for sure, but this is a team that's been able to rely on their defense when they have gotten wins. And we did see their offense start to pick up a little bit last week. Maybe the return of Deontay Johnson, maybe not. Maybe it's just happens to be a happy coincidence there. But if their offense can start to put things together a little bit, they'll put them into better situations, and we'll see this defense even move to another level. So I think this is a good matchup for them, and they've got some game records there, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. I know we talked about it last week. They're doing this without Cameron Hayward. Last year they missed Watt for a big portion of the season, so those guys haven't even been on the field for a lot of plays the last 2 years, but when they get Hayward back this year, I know we're talking about this week specifically, but I'm looking for this Pittsburgh defense to really keep taking step by step by step. And I think, they're going to be good this week. They're going to get even better as we keep going along.
Yeah, I think pressure is going to be key for them because Trevor Lawrence looks pretty settled in. The Jaguars' offensive line is doing a decent job protecting him. They're also running the ball effectively at times. It might take a little while for them to get going, but they have turned it on throughout games so far. So guys like Ojinobi, Montrevious Adams, DeMarvin Lee, those are the guys that got to get pressure outside of just TJ Watt, because I do see this Jaguars' offensive line really accounting for him this week, possibly chipping with tight ends or bringing an extra back in for protection.
Yeah.
So when we look at this Jags offense, how would you attack a Pittsburgh Steelers defense this week?
Well, the guys that you were just naming off there, that's their defensive interior. We talked about Cameron Hayward's not there. I think you got to try to hit him on the inside, maybe some of those power type runs. You don't want to, you've got game wreckers on the edges. You want to stay away from that. Maybe hit them inside, hit them quick. Just try to make it happen fast so that you don't get TJ Watt chasing the back from the backside either. Because if you kind of take some of those long stretch plays, you run away from TJ Watt, he ends up wrecking your life from the backside. So I think, you want to run those quick hitters, get downhill fast.
Definitely. So going back to our guy, Josh here, my roster is Russ, JT, Aaron Jones. Let's focus on Aaron Jones a little bit. A play that we both love for DFS this week, Minnesota defense versus the Green Bay Packers offense, is a $2,500 price tag. And the Vikings defense is coming off a dominant performance against the 49ers. They held one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL to 65 total yards. Christian McCaffrey carried the ball 15 times for 45 yards, didn't have over a 10-yard carry. Can they replicate this same success against Aaron Jones in the Green Bay Packers this week?
Absolutely. If you're doing it against San Francisco, I think you can definitely do it against Green Bay. Brian Flores has got that defensive unit playing out of their mind right now. They're playing a lot better than any expectations that were out there. Run a lot of exotic blitzes, a lot of exotic coverages. And I think the way that they're playing right now, for a $2,500 price in DFS, that's definitely attractive. As far as the run game, we haven't seen Green Bay really hit their stride on offense, running or passing the ball this year a whole lot. So I think it's a good spot to take this budget play. And I see it being tough sledding again for Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't see Aaron Jones having a huge week this week. But when you look at this Minnesota defense, it's a bunch of third and fourth round guys on the defensive front. It's just guys who play hard. I really like Harrison Phillips. He's been very good stuff in the run this year. And the Green Bay offensive line has not been that good. Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker, 2 tackles for them, just really haven't found a rhythm. Jordan Love hasn't settled in. So I absolutely love this price. So if you're looking at 2 matchups here, Max, Minnesota versus Green Bay or Pittsburgh versus Jacksonville, knowing Pittsburgh's probably a little more reliable, but going against a better opponent. And then you have Minnesota, who not super talented, but playing well against Green Bay. Where would you lean if you could only take one?
If I could only take one, I think I got to take I say it a lot. I feel like I'll take the savings again this week, and I'll go down and play Minnesota there. I know I always hedge it by saying that, range of outcomes, probably play a little bit of both in some lineups here this weekend, but probably see a little bit more Minnesota in those lineups. So if you make me choose one, I'll take Minnesota there.
Definitely. I'm going to go with Minnesota as well, based on what they did last week. Even though it is a short week, should have a lot of momentum coming into this football game. But anyways, that was Win the Line for week 8. We're moving through the season here. Tanner Kern joined alongside Maxx Forde. Make sure, if you want all those DFS questions answered, guys, we only have 12 to 15 minutes on this show. But if you want more, make sure you head over to 33rdteam.com and join the free Discord as well. All that stuff is linked in the bio. And we will see you next week for another episode of Win the Line.